The Edify Show. And now, the host of The Edify Show, Elliot Wallach.
I've got a never-before-seen interview today with one of my favorite people on the set. This is Loretta Walsh. And when you watch this interview, we did this on the set of when they were filming season 11. You'll see right away on my face how excited I am to talk to Loretta. We've interviewed her several times, so she is the nicest lady. And I just remember the very first time I met her, I want to say it was like season 2, but when she's walking in, you're expecting Florence. You're expecting someone harder and more serious. And in walks this loving, happy, just a quick laugh. And she's so fun. And then on top of it, this amazing Australian accent. So when you see the actual interview, you'll see, first of all, you'll just see how excited I am. And right away, just that stark, beautiful accent comes out. We talk a little bit about it. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is such an exciting day. This is Elliot Wallach here, and I have Loretta Walsh, formerly Florence Blakely, now Florence Yost. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Elliot.
I've been so excited to talk to you for the longest time. As we've interviewed you so many times, I have to tell you, we've interviewed a lot of people. You always win the coolest accent of the day contest every time. It's funny. I asked Daniel once, I was like, man, you have this awesome Australian accent. So you go back to Australia. Do you ever do the American accent? Just cool. It is. I hate to tell you, mate, nobody cares about the American accent. So I guess they don't get it. It doesn't sound I don't sound as cool to you as you do to me. That's unfortunate.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. But, I know I must admit that my husband, he will always be like, I can tell that you're talking to your family because my Australian accent comes out so thick.
Really?
When I'm talking to my people, right?
It just amps up.
Yeah, it really does. And when I go back, and then it's just becomes very, very thick Australian. But I get so used to playing an American or Canadian in Canada. So I've been here for such a long time now, like over 20 years. And I think sometimes I have a little bit of a mishmash of an accent because I started doing that because I got so frustrated when I first moved to Canada that not everybody could understand what I was saying. And I had to repeat myself so many times. So I would just use the American pronunciation to save time. And sometimes I even do it with my husband. Like he'll say the Australian pronunciation of something and I'll say the Canadian pronunciation of something. And it's almost like our love language, right? Like I'm trying to meet you halfway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, is he Australian?
He's not. He's Canadian.
Wow. So you've still got him trained a little bit to use the Australian version of the...
Not really. Not at all. Wow. No. He thinks it's kind of funny to put it on.
So I find it very impressive. I mean, that you can step in and go, okay, I'm going to be in America today. I'm going to sound no one at any grocery store would ever doubt it. And then you can do that. And so I know you taught acting. Is that any area that you've actually taught? Like have you taught people?
No, I haven't taught dialect or accents. And I really, when I first moved to Canada, I felt quite insecure. And I thought, oh my goodness, everybody's going to see that I'm a fraud and that I don't belong here, right? And and my husband actually gave me good advice. He said, just at the time, like Friends was really big, right? He was like, just watch Friends and just try and sound like them.
Really?
Or just watch the news and just try to sound like them. And so I would just try and imitate. And then I would take it for a ride. So I would go and get coffee or take a taxi or whatever and just be like, I'll see if I can do it American and see if I can get away without somebody saying, where are you from? So I kind of trained myself to do it. And then obviously along the way, as I started to work more, I worked with, people who really specialize in accents.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when were you acting in Australia?
I was.
So clearly not a fraud, right? So successful,
Thank
right?
you. But don't we all feel that way?
Oh no, totally. You should hear my inner voice right now.
Yeah. Everybody has a thing, I just think it's a part of being human.
Oh yeah, totally.
But it made me really determined to be like, okay, if I'm going to live here, if I'm going to really try and have a career here, I'm going to have to convince people that I'm not me, I'm this character.
Right.
And that was like, okay, it's going to be work, but it feels great. With that said, I would love to play an Australian.
Okay.
I would just love it.
Right.
To play a character that was in my own accent.
Right.
I think it would be a hoot.
I'm thinking Florence's lost twin sister.
I know. Wouldn't that be so funny?
That would be at least a dream sequence.
That was so funny. Yeah, we had a showrunner who said that to me one time. He said, "You're so different. Like, you start talking with this accent and you're a completely different person than Florence. I just feel like, what if we, introduced another character, but it was you, just completely different, with your Aussie accent." I'm like, oh, I would love it.
So funny. I can so relate. Because I remember when you came in the first time, it was like, if you could see the clouds, like I wasn't even ready for it. And then also it's like, whoa, that was interesting. To me, honestly, at the time, I thought, wow, she's really an amazing actress. Because, you know what I'm saying? I mean, because you went from that to that, like right before my eyes, even though it was sort of like back to the normal. So when you walk me through, when you came out, you were an actress, and then when did you start teaching? Like, how did that evolve?
So when I moved I used to live in Toronto, which is where my husband is from. So we met in Australia. I had been to acting school there, was doing a lot of plays, little bits on TV, and moved to Toronto in 2001, and we lived there for 6 years, and then we moved out to Vancouver. I did do some teaching in Toronto, but I was teaching little kids, and I had all of the energy in the world for it. It was really challenging, but really fun. And so I had some teaching experience, but when I moved to Vancouver, I found an acting studio and I started going there as an actor, as a student. And the studio really works with professional actors or actors who want to be professionals. Mm-hmm. And through that process, I really found a mentor there. His name is Ben Emmanuel. And something just sort of clicked. I think teachers are really special and incredible people. And they really, really count. And if you find a teacher who speaks your language or who is able to get through to you and make you learn something that maybe you weren't ready to learn before, or maybe you just needed it taught to you in a different way, I felt like the lights just went on. And I was like, wow, I got it. This is great. And I worked extensively as a student at that studio. And then I was working with another actor one time. And my teacher and mentor came to me after the class one day and said, "Listen, can I talk to you? I just want to ask you what you guys are working on outside of class and what you said to her." And I told him, because she was a fellow Australian. Oh. I was like, "Listen, we're doing this play, which is an American play. This is how we're going to do it. And these characters are very different, and it feels kind of very different because it's different from Australians in this way." And so I just sort of started explaining to him how I was just, I guess I was just sort of at a point in my life and in my career where I was take no prisoners. I was like, we are doing this. We are not going to settle for anything less than the best we can do. And he just said, "I think you're a teacher."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I have done a bit of teaching before. And he said, "Listen, I'm looking for another teacher to teach here. And I know you, and I know your work, and I think that you can help people."
And then you just did it?
Yeah. And so he trained me to do it. And, we continue to collaborate to this day. And it's really joyful, really, really joyful work.
And how long ago was that?
That was, oh my goodness, a decade ago.
I mean, wow. How cool to think back on that moment and have him believe in you and to have him be so right. Yeah. Because some of your students you've worked with a lot of. Yeah. You were a fair amount. Can you name it?
It's so thrilling. Yeah. It's so thrilling when someone comes onto set and it's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you." Amanda Wong. Yeah. Eva Bourne, who used to be on the show. Yeah. She was also a student. So it's really, I love this art form, and I love the craft of acting. And I just think that, without sort of waxing too lyrical, right? Because we're obviously not curing cancer over here.
But you're cheering the people up that are, maybe.
Maybe, right? I think that, telling stories is an avenue for connection, for human connection.
Totally.
And actors are really, that's the deal, is they get to connect not only with other actors, but with their audience too. Yeah. And so, we may not be, again, solving the climate crisis or something, but I think that it is really valuable, and I just love actors in general. I just think that they're usually very open-hearted, fun, playful, collaborative people, and so I love to hang with that kind of energy.
Totally.
Yeah.
I thought about that with the teaching kids how to act. It almost like felt like teaching kids how to like candy or something, like, because they're so naturally want to pretend, and so I almost like teaching the adults how to remember how it is to be a kid.
Totally.
But that'd be it. Well, I think to further what you do, I think movies, I think television, it's the most powerful art form. Like, you can read a book, you can see a painting, but you don't forget your very existence. Right. Where you see that movie, there are people out there motivated to literally change their lives because of something Florence did. I have
been changed by it. Right. I really, I run a small independent theater company, and I love live theater. And I'm very passionate about it, but I've been to see live performances that I've walked out of and gone, oh my goodness, I feel different.
Right.
Like, oh my goodness. I've had moments, watching plays that, I remember the moment where I was like, okay, I got to have a baby because of something that I had seen and felt in front of me. Right? Like, I really think that it can be such an avenue for connection and change personally and socially.
Totally agree. I think it's what's so important about, like, you can inspire somebody to live such a much better life or a different entertainment, worse life. Yeah. And it's why working on something like Wind Calls the Heart, I think it's such an important thing to encourage. Imagine if the whole world was Hope Valley.
I know.
Yeah.
It's such a nice place to be, isn't it? Because it is a very kind place. It's a very community-based place. You can make mistakes in Hope Valley and people still love you and forgive you. You can learn and you support each other. And I think we all want to live in a world like that.
And I'll say that that's the experience I have coming to the set.
I'm so glad.
Everybody is so kind, and it's just fun, and get hugs, and just it's the people behind the camera, I think, that are able to project it. They clearly, you guys have all of this love for each other. You have love for the fans. It's just an positive environment. It's fun to do it. It's
very much.
And it's really fun to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
This is my
pleasure. Look forward to talking to you again soon. It's terrific. I mean, who would not want, for you aspiring actors out there, who would not want Loretta Walsh to be your acting teacher, your acting coach? My gosh, where would Wind Calls the Heart be without Loretta Walsh? She's just phenomenal. Hi, Loretta. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, you guys. Tune in next week on the Edify show, where we continue to give you guys that Wind Calls the Heart fix until season 12 finally gets here. Thanks again, everybody.